the ancient secret behind concrete that heals itself, and how it still applies to your home today. There is a quiet contradiction hiding in plain sight. Across the Atlantic, the dome of the Pantheon has stood unreinforced for nearly 2,000 years, during earthquakes, floods, and the slow violence of time itself without failing. Meanwhile, modern homes built with advanced tools, standardized materials, and precise engineering develop cracks within a decade. Basements leak, walls bow, and homeowners brace for repair bills that can spiral into the thousands. That gap isn't just about time, it's about knowledge. Somewhere between ancient Rome and the present day, we lost something practical, something deceptively simple, and most importantly, something still accessible right now. This video is not about romanticizing the past. It's about extracting a working system from it. By the end, you will understand not only why Roman structures outlast modern ones, but also how that same principle can help you identify, fix, and even prevent one of the most common structural issues in modern homes. The Roman discovery that changed construction forever. Long before modern chemistry existed as a formal science, Roman builders working along the Bay of Naples stumbled into a material that defied everything known at the time. By combining volcanic ash, burned limestone, and seawater, they created a concrete that didn't weaken in water, it thrived in it. Harbor walls hardened beneath the surface, piers grew stronger with age, and structures exposed to constant wave impact remained intact for centuries. Modern research has finally caught up with what they unknowingly achieved. Studies revealed that seawater interacting with Roman concrete triggered the growth of interlocking mineral crystals inside the material. These crystals filled microscopic gaps, reinforcing the structure from within. Even more remarkable, chunks of unreacted lime embedded in the concrete acted like internal repair kits. When cracks formed and water entered, these lime pockets dissolved and recrystallized, effectively sealing the damage over time. What the Romans built wasn't just durable, it was adaptive. It responded to stress by becoming stronger. How that knowledge faded and then quietly returned. When the Roman Empire declined, so did the systematic understanding of this construction method. Variations of hydraulic materials persisted through the Middle Ages, but the precise combination and intentional use of these ingredients faded into fragmented tradition rather than disciplined practice. It wasn't until the 18th century that the principle was rediscovered in a meaningful way. A British engineer, tasked with constructing a lighthouse capable of withstanding relentless ocean waves, began experimenting with different limestone and clay mixtures. Through repeated testing, he identified a formula that could set and harden underwater. The resulting structure stood for over a century, not because it avoided harsh conditions, but because it was built to endure them. That rediscovery laid the groundwork for modern cement. Today's materials, while industrialized and standardized, still rely on the same fundamental reaction: minerals interacting with water to create a hardened, stone-like mass. The chemistry never disappeared. It simply became background knowledge, disconnected from everyday understanding. Why the simplest solution is often the least known. There is a reason most homeowners don't immediately reach for a low-cost solution when they see a crack forming in their foundation. It isn't because the solution doesn't exist. It's because it isn't visible. Modern repair industries operate on specialization, liability, and scale. Companies invest heavily in proprietary systems, branded solutions, and marketing strategies that justify higher costs. These systems often work, but they also dominate awareness. Meanwhile, basic materials, those that solve a large percentage of common problems, sit quietly on store shelves without promotion or explanation. This doesn't mean professionals are unnecessary. On the contrary, their role is critical when structural integrity is compromised. But the gap between a minor issue and a major one is where most people lack clarity. Without that distinction, every crack feels like a catastrophe. Learning to read the warning signs before acting. The most valuable skill you can develop in this context is not how to apply a repair material. It's how to determine whether you should. Concrete behaves predictably under normal conditions. As it cures, it shrinks slightly. As temperatures change, it expands and contracts. As the ground settles, the structure adjusts. These processes often produce small, vertical, or slightly angled cracks. They are typically narrow, stable over time, and do not interfere with the structural load of the building. In these cases, the issue is not failure. its movement within acceptable limits. But not all cracks are equal. Horizontal cracks suggest external pressure pushing against the wall. Stair-step patterns in masonry indicate uneven settling. Wider openings, especially those that change over time, signal active movement. These are not surface-level issues. They point to forces that a simple patch cannot counteract. Understanding this distinction is what prevents a minor repair from becoming a hidden failure. It allows you to act with precision rather than panic. Why water is the real enemy behind most foundation problems? Cracks are often treated as the problem, but in many cases, they are simply the symptom. The underlying force is water. When a foundation is constructed, the surrounding soil is disturbed and then replaced. This creates a zone that absorbs water more easily than the undisturbed ground beyond it. During heavy rain, water accumulates in this area, saturating the soil and increasing pressure against the foundation walls. Over time, this pressure finds weak points, small cracks, porous sections, or joints, and forces water through them. Left unmanaged, this cycle repeats with every storm. Sealing a crack without addressing the water source is a temporary victory. The pressure remains, and eventually, it finds another path. Redirecting water away from the structure is the first line of defense. Roof runoff should be carried far from the foundation. The ground should slope outward, allowing gravity to move water away before it penetrates the soil. Even subtle adjustments in drainage can dramatically reduce the stress placed on your walls. Applying ancient principles with modern precision. Once you've determined that a crack is non-structural and addressed the water pressure behind it, the repair process becomes straightforward, but it demands attention to detail. The material used in this process works through rapid chemical reaction. When mixed with water, it begins to harden within minutes, expanding slightly as it sets. This expansion is critical. It allows the material to press tightly against the surrounding concrete, creating a seal that resists water intrusion. Preparation is where most failures occur. A surface-level application will not hold. The crack must be shaped so that the repair material can lock into place. This often involves widening the interior of the crack slightly, creating a profile that prevents the material from being pushed out under pressure. Moisture plays a dual role. While excessive water can interfere with curing, a completely dry surface can absorb moisture too quickly, weakening the bond. Balanced approach, damp but not saturated, creates the optimal environment for the reaction to occur. Timing is equally important. Once mixed, the material must be applied quickly and firmly. For active leaks, pressure must be maintained as the material sets, allowing it to expand and seal the flow. This is not a passive process. It requires steady force and patience during those critical first minutes. Same material and method can be applied to other vulnerable areas. Gaps around pipes, deteriorating mortar joints, and small openings in concrete structures all benefit from the same principle, creating a tight, expanding seal that resists water intrusion. Each application reinforces the same lesson. The effectiveness of the repair is not just in the material itself, but in how it interacts with its environment. Proper preparation, correct application, and an understanding of underlying forces determine the outcome. What this teaches us about survival and knowledge. There is a broader lesson embedded in all of this. The Romans did not have modern instruments or scientific language to describe what they were doing. What they had was observation, repetition, and a commitment to refining what worked. Over generations, that approach produced structures that continue to outperform many modern equivalents. Today, we have access to both the ancient results and the modern explanation. Yet the practical application of that knowledge often remains out of reach for the average person, not because it is complex, but because it is disconnected from everyday awareness. Survival, in any context, depends on bridging that gap. It's about recognizing that the tools you need may already exist, waiting to be understood and used correctly. It's about replacing uncertainty with informed action. A crack in your foundation is not automatically a crisis. It is a signal. Interpreted correctly, it tells you whether you are dealing with normal behavior or a developing problem. Managed properly, it can be resolved quickly, effectively, and at minimal cost. The same chemical principles that allowed ancient builders to construct enduring harbors now exist in a form you can use yourself. The difference lies in awareness. Once you understand how and when to apply this knowledge, you shift from reacting to problems to controlling them. That shift is what turns information into capability. If this breakdown gave you something practical you can actually use, subscribe to Intelligent Survival. Share this with someone who owns a home or plans to. And if there's another overlooked survival skill or historical technique you want unpacked in full detail, leave it in the comments. This is the kind of knowledge that shouldn't stay hidden.